on, women's sports will be only for women.
President Donald Trump on Wednesday signed an executive order to exclude transgender girls and women from participating in female school sports under his interpretation of Title IX. Reuters correspondent Dan Trotta explains.
Title IX is a law that prevents discrimination on the basis of sex in education. The Trump administration intends to use Title IX as a means to protect women in sports, that is, non-transgender women in sports, to protect them from having to compete against transgender athletes. That's where there could be a true change in policy if it holds up in court.
With my action this afternoon, we're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding.
Critics say Trump's directive stomps on the rights of a small minority of athletes, but Republicans say the directive restores fairness in sports and protects girls in schools.
So it's something of an open question. But the real issue, as the president of the NCAA said, is that there are less than 10 transgender athletes among the 500,000 participating in collegiate sports. At the high school level, it's impossible to say exactly, but the best estimates are that there are a couple of dozen.
The war on women's sports is over.
Trump's order also instructs the State Department to demand changes within the International Olympic Committee to prevent transgender athletes from competing.
Trump cannot dictate to the International Olympic Committee what its rules ought to be. And this is a matter that has undergone some serious review multiple times by the Olympic Committee.
The Trump administration has taken aim broadly at transgender rights since taking office on January 20th. While Trump supporters have hailed the president for making good on campaign promises, critics say Trump has overstepped his executive authority.
Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
For a lot of trans youth out there, it just means, once again, their country's declaring war on them. And this is going to affect people's mental health. I'll admit it's affected mine, and I'm 53 years old. I mean, but for young people coming up, especially for these kids, and especially in middle school and high school, this is very difficult. This is brutal on them. It's harsh on their families. And don't think that this is the end of it. This is part of a whole program to essentially erase transgender Americans from American life. And yes, just to note, transgender Americans are just that. We're Americans.
Today is another example, at the highest level in seat and position power in the world, watching the new president of the United States articulate complete, utter nonsense and doing complete harm to the most vulnerable communities in his own society within the boundaries of the United States, which will have generational harm long term.
One win does not make domination. One kid winning one race at a national championship swim meet 3 years ago is not domination. But they're trying to say this fear because, let's face it, Donald Trump knows he's lying about transgender Americans. Riley Gaines knows she's lying about transgender athletes. The thing that they're banking on is that you, the average person out there, doesn't know they're lying. That's what they're banking on.
Female athletes have been forced onto the front lines, and men claiming to be girls have stolen more than 3,500 victories. That's a lot. And invaded more than 11,000 competitions designed for women.
First of all, the numbers they don't exist. Understand that there's 0.01% gender variant people living in our society as a whole. So it's a very tiny, tiny grouping of people that he is that he's actually targeting. And certainly the numbers in terms of gender performance are filled with inaccuracies as well. Those numbers just don't exist. And it's incomprehensible of somebody in the highest seat in the world, the most powerful seat in the world, to project such misinformation, not just in the United States, but globally on such an issue that has not just, it has a tremendous impact in the United States, but also worldwide.
We have to learn now. If we wait until the next edition of the games and it does not work, it's too late. So we have to work at a moment where overall we are enjoying this huge success.
And I think it's somebody like a Thomas Bach in the position as the leader of the IOC, and other governments, either be Canada or other nations who have policies on human rights, that this is a time to stand up and to be able to say, we can do better. And we're not going to allow this type of language and this type of behavior to become a vacuum within our communities, let alone in the United States.